Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Matt, and this is Marcus. In partnership with the City of Kelowna and with the support of our colleagues, Jiwoo and Ritapa, we developed land use strategies to shape the future growth of Kelowna. Kelowna is the regional center of the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia. It's Canada's fastest growing census metropolitan area, but it has limited space for urban expansion because of its lakeside geography, as well as protected agricultural land. One of the solutions for this, as outlined in the 2040 OCP, are transit supportive corridors. These are areas along major roads that are designated for higher density and mixed use development. These developments are meant to not only be supported by better transit, but also facilitate and support transit development by improving ridership. So to guide our analysis, we turn to the Livable Transit Corridors framework. This framework divides corridors into three categories: emerging, transitioning, and integrated, with integrated corridors being the most livable and emerging corridors being the least. So as transit, walkability, density, and other factors increase, livability also improves, and an emerging corridor can become transitioning and even integrated over time. We applied this framework to three in-depth case studies located in the Waterloo region, Ontario, right here on the Cambie Corridor in Vancouver, and Arlington, Virginia. From Waterloo, we found that robust performance monitoring is needed to mitigate transit-induced gentrification. From the Cambie Corridor, we noted how essential it was to have policies in place to manage land speculation prior to development occurring. And from Arlington, we learned the importance of having a long-term strategic vision when it comes to corridor planning. And now Marcus will take us back to Kelowna.
Thank you, Matt. So out of the 15 big transit supported corridors within Kelowna, we focused in on three. Firstly, there's Richter, Gordon, and Pandosy. So we're going to be looking at Pandosy today. So Pandosy is a very important north to south transit supportive corridor, but the hospital is a central tenant within its space. However, we classified it as an emerging corridor. Why? Well, there's not a lot of amenities along the route. There's poor mixed use and not a whole bunch of housing diversity. Furthermore, there are spaces of poor pedestrian accessibility and blocked crosswalks and pathways. There's also some very hostile spaces for pedestrians along the roads. However, how do we get it into an integrated model? Well, we will give some context-specific interventions and then proceed with 6 basic land use interventions that all corridors can use. So by examining corridors within context and land use, we can identify novel approaches to add solutions that require less interventions. So firstly, we can extend the transit supportive corridor south to the mall, which adds a major destination and also connects to a major east to west transit network. Secondly, we can densify the corridor near the hospital. It's also a major east-west connector, and cross-pollination is very important to corridor development. So moving on to the general recommendations, these are recommendations that all corridors can use. So firstly, we can create more destinations within these spaces. This includes recreation, work, and social connections. This allows people to work, live, and play within corridors. Secondly, we can increase the diversity of dwellings. With the housing diversity, it does have to be corridor specific. We cannot be using cookie cutter approaches. This ensures that people can age in place and supports transit and businesses. However, as Matt mentioned, we do have to consider policy so that land speculation does not rise. Next, we can enhance pedestrian access. This is really important for pedestrian flow to spaces and supports businesses in transit. This also, another implementation that we can do is to improve pedestrian experience. This creates a positive feedback loop for people to use the space more. And some examples are four-season urban design and tree-lined streets. Next, we can reduce parking. Kelowna has a plethora of parking, and these spaces can be transformed into pedestrian-focused spaces to support active transportation. Lastly, by creating pedestrian-focused retail and mixed-use spaces, people are encouraged to walk and transit along the corridors. Furthermore, research has indicated that finer grain retail has strong positive economic impacts. Overall, by creating spaces and corridors that encompass these 6 land use interventions, as well as including strong transit and corridor-specific analysis, the corridors in Kelowna can blossom from emerging to integrated. This approach allows for land use that harbors the values of Kelowna to maximize livability and to ensure that all citizens have corridors where they can work, live, and play. Thank you for your time, our project partners and SCARP professors.